Namaskarams. Welcome to our concert as part of Tatparya series from Praapthi. I'm extremely delighted to be presenting this concert, and this has given me a great opportunity to delve deeper into the music that we present. As a performer, I've often wondered whether we justify the mood and aesthetics of a composition as experienced by a composer. This question has intrigued me a lot, and I set out on a path of discoveries and new learnings as I delved deeper into it. So what we are presenting to you here today is an outcome from this path of discovery, from this journey, and I plan to share with you a few compositions that bring this journey to life. As I present each composition today, I plan to discuss with you three components. The first part being the mood and aesthetics of the composition, the context in which the composer probably created it. Number two, the structure and the lyrics of the composition and the essence of the meaning of the kriti. And the third part, mostly after I render the kriti, I would also like to share my thoughts in connection and interpretation with the composition. This would be roughly the structure that I would adopt while discussing each composition that I present. The first composition that I'll present today is Shri Mahaganapati Ravatumam by Shri Muthuswami Dikshitar, set in the ragam Gaulai to Mishra Chaputalam. Starting with the first part of the discussion, the context and aesthetics of this composition, it is said that Dikshitar composed this kriti as an invocation to be sung before the Kamalamba Navavarnams that he created. The composition makes references to the Mattu Uraitha Pillayar as part of the Tiruvarur temple of Sri Tyagaraja, Kamalamba and Neelotpalamba. This is the Kamalamba on whom Dikshitar composed the Navavarnams later. As part of the invocation, Dikshitar didn't dilute the composition in any way, just because it's an invocation. It's quite a magnum opus of a kriti with a very well structured Jatiswaram between the Anupallavi and Charanam, which is very appealing. In terms of the raga that he chose for the kriti as well, I would like to mention that Gaulai creates a very solemn mood and a sense of serious worship, which is very apt before something as grand and weighty as the Navavarnams. Moving on to the second part, where I try to understand the structure and the lyrics of the composition. We know that this is set in Mishra Chaputalam. In terms of the lyrics, what I found interesting is that in the Anupallavi, he refers to Vinayagar here being saluted by Indra, Brahma and Vishnu. This Vinayagar with very soft feet and hands like the lotus. Also, specifically would like to mention that in the Charanam, he makes a Suchita Raga Mudra to Gaulai when he uses the phrase Gauravarna Vasanadharo, which means the one who is adorned in white clothes predominantly. Gaura meaning white, also an indirect reference to Gaulai, the ragam in which the song is set. Let's move on to the rendition of the song, and then I'll continue with my discussion on my connection with this kriti. Shri Maha Ganapati-ravatu Mam. Shri Maha Ganapati-ravatu Mam. Shri Maha Ganapati-ravatu Mam. Siddhi Vinayako Matangamukha 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 Shri Maha Ganapati-ravatu Kama-janaka Kama-janaka Vitindra-sannuta Kamalalaya Tatanivaso Kama-janaka Vitindra-sannuta Kamalalaya Tatanivaso Kama-janaka Vitindra-sannuta Kamalalaya Tatanivaso Kama-janaka Vitindra-sannuta Kamalalaya Tatanivaso Komalakara Pallava Padakara Guru Gukhakraja Shivatmaja Komalakara Pallava Padakara Guru Gukhakraja Shivatmaja Pama Gamma Ri Gamma Tanakujam Nisari Kitata Panisa Januta Nisari Matakanam Magamattanata Papa Madimita Mapani Pakitadari Panisari Kukuntari Mapani Takitajam Rigamata Dimitari Nisari Sakukuntari Pani Pasadimitari Rigamarisa Jamtarita Sani Pama Tatinginatum Shri Maha Ganapati-ravatu Mam. Siddhi Vinayako Matangamukha Shri Maha Ganapati-ravatu Mam. Suvarnakashana Vignarajo Padambujo Gauravarnavasanadharo Bhalachandro Naradi Vinutalam Bodharo कुवलय स्वविषाण पाशाङ्कुश मोदक सुवर्णाकर्षण विघ्नराजो पादाम्बुजो गौरवर्ण वसनधरो फालचन्द्रो नरादि विनुतलम्बोदरो कुवलय स्वविषाण पाशाङ्कुश मोदक प्रकाशकरो भवजलधि नावो ओ प्रकाशकरो भवजलधि नावो ओ प्रकाशकरो भवजलधि नावो मूल प्रकृति स्वभाव सुखतरो प्रकाशकरो भवजलधि नावो मूल प्रकृति स्वभाव सुखतरो रवि सहस्र सन्निधेको कवि जननुत मूषिकवाको रवि सहस्र सन्निधेको कवि जननुत मूषिकवाको अवनत देवता समूहो अविनाश कैवल्य देखो अवनत देवता समूहो अविनाश कैवल्य देखो पमग मरि गमतन कुजम निसरि किटत पनिस जनुत निसरि मत कनम मग मतनत पप मदिमित मपनि पकिटतरि पनि सरि कुकुन्दरि मपनि तकिटजम ऋग मत दिमितरि निसरि स कुकुन्दरि पनि बस दिमितरि ऋग मरि स जम तरि सानि पम तटिंगिणतुं श्री महागणपति रवतु मां सिद्धि विनायको मातङ्गमुख श्री महागणपति रवतु मां I hope you are able to get into the mood and aesthetics of this Vinayagar Kriti by Dikshitar. I started learning this composition from my guru Sri T.P. Nishant sir a few years back on Vijayadashami day. Ever since then, I've always been awestruck by the complexity of the Jatiswaram and what I can picture when this Jatiswaram is being sung mostly is a well-adorned temple elephant walking majestically along the wide corridors of the temple just before an important Utsavam with a lot of people gathered around, praying very reverentially to the elephant, who's of course a form of the Vinayagar. So that's the sense of majesty and grandeur that I always imagine when I sing this composition. Also, I would like to mention that, as I mentioned before, Gauravarna Vasanadharo, which means someone who's adorned in a lot of white, I always recall the Pillayar that I have seen a lot in my childhood. In Madurai, the Mukkurni Vinayagar, who's part of the Meenakshi temple, he's really a huge Vinayagar, and he's often seen in a Vibhuti Kavasam or with a huge Veshti, which is a sea of white. So every time I sing this composition, my thoughts also travel back in time to my days that I spent in Madurai, traveling to the Meenakshi Amman temple, which was very often, and this specific Vinayagar, who is huge and really a very important colossal of a figure. Another point of interest for me with this composition as I learnt it was we often hear kritis on Vinayagar in ragams like Natai, Hamsadvani, Tilang perhaps. But Gaulai, as the choice of a ragam for a kriti on Vinayagar, was something that I found to be quite unique and very interesting. And also, I found that it is very apt to begin a composition, to begin a concert with a composition in a ragam like Gaulai on Vinayagar because of the solemnity and the serious sense of prayer that it renders to the concert. Just to summarize, as I mentioned before, we looked at 3 parts of understanding this composition deeper from the composer's context and aesthetics, in terms of the structure and lyrics of the composition, and my specific interpretation of this composition and connection to this kriti. The next composition that I'll present today is Saroja Dalanetri, composed by Sri Shyama Shastri in the ragam Shankarabharanam and set to Adi Thalam. Talking about the context, the mood and aesthetics of this composition, I have to start my discussion with a little bit of a note about Sri Shyama Shastri. Unlike Muthuswami Dikshitar, who we know has travelled the length and breadth of India and visited a lot of temples in the north and the south of India, Sri Shyama Shastri had a very different personality. He was quite a recluse. He did not travel to too many places, and he was single-mindedly devoted to his mother goddess, Bangaru Kamakshi, and he spent most of his life living in Tiruvarur and Tanjavur, and perhaps later in Kanchipuram. In one of such rare visits to Pudukottai, he was advised by a gentleman to visit Madurai and compose and sing on the goddess Meenakshi, whose temple is there in Madurai. Enthused by this, Sri Shyama Shastri visited Madurai. He was enchanted by the beauty of the temple and goddess Meenakshi herself. He sat in front of her and composed 9 gems of songs, which are now known as the Meenakshi Navaratna Malika. These compositions were primarily composed in Rakti Ragas that ooze a lot of melody and very interesting rhythmic patterns. Saroja Dalanetri is one such composition. In fact, it is said that there is also an equivalent of this kriti in Sanskrit, which goes as Devi Meena Netri, and it is slightly in a more Chauka Kalam, a lower pace, which is known as a twin kriti of Saroja Dalanetri because it typically follows the same notation. But with time and Vidwans and Vidushis who popularized the kritis, Saroja Dalanetri became a much more popular version than the other kriti. So coming to the second part, what does Sri Shyama Shastri say in essence in this composition? He glorifies goddess Meenakshi primarily, her beauty, her compassion and her generosity in this composition. He calls her Gunadhama, epitome of all noble virtues. Samagana Vinodini, the one who revels in the music of the Samaveda. He calls her enchanting beautiful eyes to be compared with lotus petals when he starts off the Kriti with Saroja Dalanetri. He even compares her face to the radiant moon when he says Indumukhi. So he makes several references, beautiful references and comparisons of the form of the goddess, the beauty of the goddess. There is also a second part of the composition which I felt is more of an intimate conversation between Shyama Sastri and goddess Meenakshi. If we look at the 3 charanams which form a part of this composition, the essence of these charanams are Shyama Sastri asking Meenakshi why she is yet to shower his blessings on him, when she is known to be very generous to all her devotees and fulfill all their wishes in no time at all. So I would summarize the meaning and essence of the lyrics of this composition into 2 parts: glorifying the beauty of the goddess in one part, and the second part where he has this conversation with the goddess, trying to understand and beseech her to bestow her blessings on him and all her devotees. I have to also talk about Shankarabharanam, which is this beautiful ancient ragam that this Kriti is set in. The choice of this ragam again is very apt to talk about beauty, grace and compassion, because there is an innate sweetness and happiness to this ragam. And every time one sings this ragam, you can't miss the feeling of happiness and fun, which is very well suited when someone wants to talk about beauty, grace and compassion. सरोज दल नेत्री हिमगिरी पुत्री अम्ब सरोज दल नेत्री हिमगिरी पुत्री अम्ब सरोज दल नेत्री हिमगिरी पुत्री निपदाम्बुज मूलो सदा नम्मिना नम्म शुभमिम्मा श्रीमीनाक्षम्मा 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 सरोज दल नेत्री हिमगिरी पुत्री निपदाम्बुज मूलो सदा नम्मिना नम्म शुभमिम्मा श्रीमीनाक्षम्मा सदा नम्मिना नम्म शुभमिम्मा पराकुसेयक वरदायकिनी వరదాయకిని వలదైవములోకములో గల్లదాపరాకు సేయక వరదాయకిని వలదైవములోకములో గల్లదాపరాకు సేయక వరదాయకిని వలదైవములోకములో గల్లదాపరాకు సేయక వరదాయకిని వలదైవములోకములో గల్లదాపురాణి సుఖపాణి మధుకర వేణి పురాణి సుఖపాణి మధుకర వేణి సదాశివునికి రాణి పురాణి సుఖపాణి మధుకర వేణి సదాశివునికి రాణి పురాణి సుఖపాణి మధుకర వేణి సదాశివునికి రాణి సరోజ దళనేత్రీ హిమగిరి పుత్రీ నీ పరాంబుజములో సదా నమ్మ శుభబింబా శ్రీమీనాక్షమ్మ సదా నమ్మ శుభబింబా కోరివచిన వారికెల్లను కోర్గెలొసగే బిరుదుగదాంబ కోరివచిన వారికెల్లను కోర్గెలొసగే బిరుదుగదాంబ కోరివచిన వారికెల్లను కోర్గెలొసగే బిరుదుగదాంబ కోరివచిన వారికెల్లను కోర్గెలొసగే బిరుదుగదా అతి భారమా నన్ను బ్రోవ తల్లి కృపాలవాల తాళజాలనే భారమా నన్ను బ్రోవ తల్లి కృపాలవాల తాళజాలనే సరోజ దళనేత్రీ హిమగిరి పుత్రీ నీ పరాంబుజములో సదా నమ్మ శుభబింబా సామగాన వినోదిని గుణధామ శ్యామ కృష్ణను తేంబ సామగాన వినోదిని గుణధామ శ్యామ కృష్ణను తే అంబ సామగాన వినోదిని గుణధామ శ్యామ కృష్ణను తే అంబ సామగాన వినోదిని గుణధామ శ్యామ कृष्णनुते अम्बसामगान विनोदिनी गुणधाम श्याम कृष्णनुते अम्बसामगान विनोदिनी विनोदिनी सामगान विनोदिनी अम्ब विनोदिनी अम्ब सामगान विनोदिनी गुणधाम श्याम कृष्णनुते अम्बसामगान विनोदिनी विनोदिनी अम्बसामगान विनोदिनी गुणधाम श्याम कृष्णनुते अम्बसामगान विनोदिनी गुणधाम श्याम कृष्णनुते अम्बसामगान विनोदिनी विनोदिनी सामगान विनोदिनी सामगान विनोदिनी सामगान विनोदिनी गुणधाम श्याम कृष्णनुते अम्बसामगान विनोदिनी गुणधाम श्याम कृष्णनुते अम्ब सामगान विनोदिनी गुणधाम श्याम कृष्णनुते अम्ब सामगान विनोदिनी गुणधाम श्याम कृष्णनुते अम्ब सामगान विनोदिनी विनोदिनी समगान विनोदिनी गुणराम श्याम कृष्णनुते अम्ब सामगान राम श्याम कृष्णनुते अम्ब सामगान विनोदिनी गुणधाम श्याम कृष्णनुते अम्ब सामगान गुण दाम श्याम कृष्णनुते अम्ब सामगान विनोदिनी गुणराम श्याम कृष्णनुते अम्ब सामगान विनोदिनी गुणदाम श्याम कृष्णनुते अम्ब गान विनोदिनी विनोदिनी साम गान विनोदिनी एकदाम श्याम कृष्णनुते अम्ब सामगान विनोदिनी गुणदाम श्याम कृष्णनुते अम्ब सामगान विनोदिनी कृष्णनुते अम्ब सामगान विनोदिनी गुणदाम श्याम कृष्णनुते सुख श्यामला देवी सुख ಶ್ಯಾಮಳ ದೇವಿ ನೀವೇ ಗತಿರತಿ ಶ್ಯಾಮಳ ದೇವಿ ನೀವೇ ಗತಿರತಿ ಶ್ಯಾಮಳ ದೇವಿ ನೀವೇ ಗತಿರತಿ ಕಾಮ ಕಾಮ್ಯದ ಕಾವವೇ ನನ್ನು ಶ್ಯಾಮಳ ದೇವಿ ನೀವೇ ಗತಿರತಿ ಕಾಮ ಕಾಮ್ಯದ ಕಾವವೇ ನನ್ನು ಸರೋಜದಳ ನೇತ್ರಿ ಹಿಮಗಿರಿ ಪುತ್ರಿ ನೀ ಪರಾಭುಜಮುಲೋ ಸಗ ನಮ್ಮಿನ ನಮ್ಮ ಶುಭಮಿಮ್ಮ ಶ್ರೀಮೀನಾಕ್ಷೌಮ ಸಗ ನಮ್ಮಿನ ನಮ್ಮ ಶುಭಮಿಮ್ಮ ಶ್ರೀಮೀನಾಕ್ಷೌ Hope you enjoyed the rendition of this Kriti. I would now go on to discuss my connection and interpretation of this composition. Madurai is synonymous with goddess Meenakshi and the beautiful Meenakshi Amman temple, which is at the center of the city. As someone who grew up in Madurai, we are enveloped seamlessly into the legends about Meenakshi, Sundareshwarar, their wedding, the Chitra festival, the Kallaragar spectacle, and so on. I am no different, and goddess Meenakshi and Madurai are very close to me and my heart. So this composition naturally drew itself to me. When I learnt it, I think as 11-year-old or 12-year-old, from my first guru, Sri Nyanambal, back in Madurai. So there is this inherent attachment that I have to this composition. The second thing that I would like to mention is that the one who popularized this composition the most, I would have to say, was Bharat Ratna M.S. Subbulakshmi. In most of her concerts, it is said that was set in Madurai, she made it a point to include this composition. And also remarkably, she also included this composition when she presented at the United Nations in 1966. When I sing this Kriti, especially the Charanam, the first Charanam, which goes Kori Vachina Vari Kellanu Korge Losage Birudugada, I'm so fascinated by the sweetness of the lyrics in Telugu that form a part of this Charanam. What it means is, you, goddess Meenakshi, is known to fulfill all the wishes of your devotees the moment they wish for it. Isn't that true? So that's how Shyama Sastri has this conversation with Meenakshi, especially the lines Kori Vachina. As I sang earlier, Kori Vachina Vari Kellanu Korge Losage Birudugada Amba Kori Vachina Vari Kellanu Korge Losage Birudugada. So when I sing this part of the composition, I can almost picture Shyama Sastri on a boat ride with Meenakshi, and the patterns in the Kriti moving is synchronized with the movement of the oars of the boat. Which are also some of the most characteristic pidis of Shankarabharanam. At the same time, they also have this whole cajoling effect on the listener as well as the person that you seem to be having a conversation with. This was something that was told to me by my guru when she taught me this kriti, and it has just stuck to my mind. It's been over 25 years, and I always think of the boat ride when I sing these lines. The last thing that I'd like to add about this composition is the place where I did the Neraval, Samagana Vinodini. Of course, this position especially is very well suited for the Neraval because it says that Meenakshi is the one who revels in the music of the Samaveda. On top of that, the use of Samaga also renders itself in terms of creating a lot of Swaraksharam opportunities when you sing the Neraval. So, one can't help thinking about the virtuosity and genius of Shyama Sastri when he created this composition with such fascinating lyrics. Thank you. Moving on to the final set of compositions as part of this concert, I would first like to render a Tilana in Mishra Shivaranjani composed by Sri Maharajapuram Santanam. I grew up listening to the music of Maharajapuram Santanam and Srimati M.S. Subbalakshmi for most part of my childhood. So somewhere in the background, the music, their music, has always been ringing in my ears, and perhaps there was a lot of osmotic learning as well in those stages. Particularly, Sri Maharajapuram Santanam, his tilanas have really fascinated me. When I grew up later, I found that he has predominantly composed tilanas and perhaps a few kritis on Mahaperiyava from Kanchipuram and Lord Murugan. It has been very clear that Murugan was a clear Ishta Devata of Maharajapuram Santanam sir. Some of the compositions that he sang on Lord Murugan, like Vilayada Idhanirama, his Viritams, Kanda Guha Shanmuga, some Tirupugars that he sang, was so exclusive to him. No one could replicate the kind of effect that his Gandharva Kural could create. So it's no wonder that some of these compositions are very appealing as we listen to them even today. Specifically coming to this Tilana, I find that it is very rightly set in Mishra Shivaranjani as a ragam when I connect it to the lyrics of the Tilana. It is an emotional outburst. It is an outcry for help and guidance to Murugan to come flying in his peacock and bestow his blessings on us. That's how this composition has been tuned. And I find Mishra Shivaranjani very apt for this because the ragam creates a mood of strange uncertainty, a little bit of a cry, an emotion for guidance, especially when we are perhaps going through some tough times, when things are uncertain for us, when the future looks a little bit bleak, when we want a beacon of guidance from the Almighty. This Tilana and in this ragam is surely something that we can reach out for. I have personally resonated with this emotion quite a bit in the past few years, and this Tilana has really helped me overcome these feelings and look at the future more optimistically. Post the rendition of this Tilana, I would go on to also render a Tirupugar, after which I would conclude my concert. This Tirupugar again is something that I find very special because of the very simple Tamil lyrics that form a part of this Tirpugal. Most of the Tirpugals of Arunagirinathar are in a little bit of a chaste Tamil, which is difficult to understand and learn. But this one especially is something that really reaches out to us because of its very simple Tamil lyrics based on the Arumugam of Lord Murugan. Tum tritadim ta tataradim ta tanadirana dirana dirana dridre tum tritadim ta tataradim ta tanadirana dirana dirana dridre tum tritadim ta tataradim ta tanadirana dirana dridre tum tritadim ta tataradim ta tana dirana 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 dridre tum tritadim ta tataradim ta tana dirana 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 dridre tum tritadim ta tataradim ta tana dirana 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 dridre tum tritadim ta tataradim ta tana dirana 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 dridre tum tritadim ta tataradim ta tana dirana 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 dridre tum tritadim ta tataradim ta tana dirana 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 dridre tum tritadim ta tataradim ta tana dirana 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 dridre tum tritadim ta tataradim ta tana dirana tanam tanam dirana janutadim dirana janutadim dirana janutadim dridre tanam tanam dirana janutadim dirana janutadim dirana janutadim dridre tanam tanam dirana janutadim dirana janutadim dirana janutadim dridre janutadim ta janutadim ta janutadim ta januta 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 tattum januta 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 tattum januta 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 tattum tritadim ta tataradim ta tanadirana dirana dirana dridre janutadim ta janutadim ta janutadim ta januta 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 tattum januta 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 tattum januta 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 tattum tritadim ta tataradim ta tanadirana dirana dirana dridre tum tritadim ta tataradim ta tana dirana வாவேலவா வடிவேலவா மயில் மீது நீவா குமரவா வரமருளவா வேலவா வடிவேலவா மயில் மீது நீவா குமர குமரவா வரமருளவா வேலவா வடிவேலவா மயில் மீது நீவா குமரவா வரமருள தாமதமீன் தயை புரிய தருணமீது மகராஜன் பணிந்திடும் மயில் வாகனா மயில் வாகனா மயில் வாகனா தாமதமீன் தயை புரிய தருணமீது மகராஜன் பணிந்திடும் மயில் வாகனா தாம் தரிகிடதீம் தரிகிடதீம் தகிடதீம் தகதீம் ததாம் ததனதாம் தரிததாம் தஜனுதாம் ததிமி தஜனு தஜம் தணம் ததாம் நதிருததீம் ததம் தணம் ததாம் நதிருததீம் தஜம் தணம் ததாம் நதிருததீம் நதிருததாம் தரிகிடதீம் தரிகிடதீம் தகிடதீம் தகதீம் ததாம் ததனதாம் தரிததாம் தஜனுதாம் ததிமி தஜனு தஜம் தணம் ததாம் நதிருததீம் தஜம் தணம் ததாம் நதிருததீம் தஜம் தணம் ததாம் நதிருததீம் நதிருததாம் தரிகிடதீம் தகிடதீம் தகதீம் ததாம் ததனதாம் தரிததாம் தஜனுதாம் ததிமி தஜனு தஜம் தணம் ததாம் நதிருததீம் தஜம் தணம் ததாம் நதிருததீம் தஜம் தணம் ததாம் நதிருததீம் ததரதீம் தனதிரனா திரனா தொந்திருததீம் ததரதீம் தனதிரனா தனதிரனா கந்த குஹ ஷண்முக முருக கந்த குஹ ஷண்முக முருக என்னை காவன ஓலமிட்டேனா என்னை காவன ஓலமிட்டேனா என்னை காவன ஓலமிட்டேன் உன் காதில் விழவில்லையா ஓலமிட்டேன் உன் காதில் விழவில்லையா மயில் மீது வர தொல்லையா தேவி மார்வழி தெய்வயானையுடன் மேவிச்சுலாவி வரும் வேளையோ வேளா ஆறு முகமாய் நீருந்தும் ஆறுமுகமாய் நீருந்தும் எனக்கு நீ ஏறுமுகம் மானதேனையா நீயே முகமாய் ஆனதே ஏறுமையில் ஏறி விளையாடும் முகம் ஒன்று ஏறுமையில் ஏறி விளையாடும் முகம் ஒன்று ஈசருடன் ஞான மொழி பேசும் முகம் ஒன்று ஏறுமையில் ஏறி விளையாடும் முகம் ஒன்று ஈசருடன் ஞான மொழி பேசும் முகம் ஒன்று கூறும் அடியார்கள் வினை தீர்த்த முகம் ஒன்று கூறும் அடியார்கள் வினை தீர்த்த முகம் ஒன்று குன்றுருவவேல் வாங்கி நின்ற முகம் ஒன்று கூறும் அடியார்கள் வினை தீர்த்த முகம் ஒன்று குன்றுருவவேல் வாங்கி நின்ற முகம் ஒன்று மாறுபடு சூரரை வதைத்த முகம் ஒன்று மாறுபடு சூரரை வதைத்த முகம் ஒன்று வள்ளியை மனம் புணர வந்த முகம் ஒன்று மாறுபடு சூரரை வதைத்த முகம் ஒன்று வள்ளியை மனம் புணர வந்த முகம் ஒன்று ஆறு முகமான பொருள் நீ அருள வேண்டும் ஆறு முகமான பொருள் நீ அருள வேண்டும் ஆதி அருணாச்சலம் அமர்ந்த பெருமாளே ஆதி அருணாச்சலம் அமர்ந்த பெருமாளே அமர்ந்த பெருமாளே அமர்ந்த பெருமாளே In summary, I'd like to say that I have observed that there is so much meaning to each composition that we present, and trying to unearth this only makes our music even more soulful and richer. This is what Tatparyam as a concert experience has helped me understand and realize. It has been a wonderful journey to me of seeking and learning, and in the past hour we have tried as a team to showcase this learning and share it with you. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Thank you again to the team of Tatparyam and Praapthi for this opportunity.